Why would Africa's top oil producer suddenly import crude from America? To grasp the stakes, we must dissect the bold move fueling this upheaval, the Dangote Refinery. The Dangote Refinery isn't just another oil project. It's a statement of ambition and a game-changer for the continent. But how did it trigger such a reversal in global oil flows? This shocking turnaround baffles experts and investors alike. How can a nation sitting atop immense oil reserves become an importer overnight? What unseen forces are driving this reversal, and what does it reveal about the future of global energy? These are not just academic questions. They cut to the heart of how wealth, power, and opportunity will shift in the decades ahead. Ignore this shift, and you risk missing a seismic change, a story with the power to upend who profits from oil, where the next wave of jobs will rise, and how wealth will cross borders. Africa is stepping out of its old role as a mere raw material supplier and preparing to lead in the battle for energy dominance. The continent, so often relegated to the sidelines, is poised to become a central player in the new energy order. Nigeria, long celebrated for its vast oil wealth and as Africa's leading oil exporter, has stunned the world by bringing in tankers of American crude. In early 2024, for the first time in history, more oil traveled from America to Nigeria than the other way around. The world's largest black nation, famous for its sprawling deltas and bustling oil terminals, suddenly found itself inverting the decades-old pattern that had defined its economy for generations. How did a nation so rich in oil end up importing fuel? And can one project truly rewrite its fate? Nigeria sits atop some of the planet's most prized oil reserves. Each day, the country extracts more than 1,300,000 barrels of crude, enough to make it an energy juggernaut. By all logic, Nigeria should power its own growth and project strength across Africa. Yet for decades, a confounding paradox played out. Rather than converting its oil wealth into prosperity, Nigeria exported crude abroad and bought back refined fuels at a punishing cost. This loop siphoned away billions of dollars, leaving ordinary Nigerians to face fuel shortages, endless lines, and stunted opportunities. The wealth generated from Nigeria's oil seemed to evaporate before it could transform the nation. Then came the Dangote Refinery, a $20 billion gamble by Aliko Dangote, Africa's wealthiest man. This monumental plant is not only Africa's largest, but also the biggest single-train refinery worldwide. Its capacity, 650,000 barrels per day, enough to satisfy Nigeria's needs and supply markets beyond its borders. This refinery could be a watershed. If Nigeria misses this chance, it risks staying trapped in a cycle of lost wealth and influence. But with Dangote's vision, Africa stands ready to shift from raw supplier to powerhouse, exporting refined fuel and rewriting the energy map. The core issue was clear. Nigeria lacked modern refining capacity. It sold raw oil, then paid dearly to import what it needed. The country lost not just revenue, but also the chance to build industries, create jobs, and secure its future. The world watched as Nigeria, rich in resources, remained tethered to foreign refineries. The contrast was striking. While countries like South Korea, with scarcely any oil of their own, built massive refining hubs and exported fuel to the world, Nigeria's riches seemed locked away. But how did Nigeria get locked into this costly cycle in the first place? And why did it take so long to break free? To answer that, we need to trace the origins of this paradox and the powerful forces behind it. Meanwhile, European refineries, especially in countries like the Netherlands and Belgium, grew fat on processing African crude. Tankers would depart from the Niger Delta only to return weeks later with gasoline, diesel, or jet fuel marked up at prices that drained Nigeria's foreign reserves. This arrangement enriched foreign middlemen and left Nigeria vulnerable to global price swings. To fire up its engines, the Dangote Refinery required a special grade, light sweet crude. Nigeria does pump vast quantities of oil, But at launch, its facilities could not yet supply the precise feedstock this multi-billion-dollar plant demanded. American shale oil, with its perfect composition, offered the ideal jumpstart. Importing oil into an oil-rich nation, was this a blunder or a masterstroke? When news broke that Nigeria, famed for its immense petroleum reserves, was bringing in shipments of American crude to fuel its state-of-the-art Dangote Refinery, critics called it ironic. Yet hidden beneath these headlines was a calculated gamble that electrified the global energy market. To understand Nigeria's predicament, it helps to look back. A century ago, many resource-rich nations fell into the so-called resource curse. Take Venezuela in the 20th century. Awash with oil, it exported vast quantities, yet imported much of its refined fuel, falling prey to corruption, underinvestment, and economic volatility. Nigeria's experience echoed this pattern. 4 state-owned refineries, built decades ago, became notorious for inefficiency, sabotage, and chronic breakdowns. Instead of modernizing, the country leaned on exports, letting its refining sector decay. This was never a sign of weakness. Instead, it was a strategic leap, the first move in a sweeping vision. By temporarily importing oil, Nigeria sent a clear message. It aimed to become more than just an exporter of raw materials. The goal? To evolve into a world-class refining hub, ready to compete with industry giants. The stakes are far higher than they seem. Focusing only on the imports misses the real story. Africa is rising as a serious contender in global refining, a force that could disrupt trade flows, shake up prices, and redraw the map of influence in the energy world. This approach echoes historical precedents. Consider how China, in the early 2000s, imported billions of dollars worth of foreign technology and expertise to launch its high-speed rail and electronics industries. Today, China is an exporter of these same technologies. Nigeria's import of American oil is not an admission of failure, but a calculated bet on building local capability for the long term. The early effects have been dramatic. For generations, Africa exported crude and imported costly finished fuels. Now, the script is flipping. The Dangote Refinery is already shipping refined gasoline to Asia, jet fuel to Saudi Aramco, and substantial volumes to the United States. In its opening year alone, it proved that African industry can meet the strictest global standards and supply the planet's most demanding markets. What does Nigeria's new refinery mean for Europe, for Africa, and for your own future? The answer is more dramatic than you might imagine. To understand the true scale of this transformation, we need to look beyond Nigeria's borders. The ripple effects are already spreading across continents, challenging old alliances and forging new economic realities. This is not just clever logistics. It is a seismic shift, a bold reimagining of what Africa can be. But the question remains, how will this transformation ripple out to reshape Africa's neighbors, Europe's energy security, and the future of the global oil trade? For decades, Europe ruled Africa's fuel market, shipping billions of dollars worth of refined petrol and diesel each year. But that old order is fading fast. With Nigeria's mega refinery now operating at full tilt, Europe's once guaranteed market is shrinking. Nigeria is not just meeting its own fuel needs, it is sending high-quality gasoline and diesel to neighboring countries, rewiring the old power dynamic almost overnight. Nigeria's refinery can process more oil than the 10 largest European refineries combined. That capacity sends shockwaves through the global energy system. Suddenly, OPEC and world powers have to treat Nigeria as a heavyweight, not just a crude oil supplier, but a nation that can move finished fuel markets across continents. This is a reversal of centuries-old trade flows. For the first time in history, Africa is not just exporting raw materials, it is shipping finished fuel to some of the world's wealthiest economies. Picture tankers loaded with Nigerian gasoline docking in European and even American ports. The old story of dependency is being ripped up and rewritten. And the ripple effect does not stop at Nigeria's borders. Across West and Central Africa, dozens of countries are now tapping into Nigeria's supply, breaking their reliance on costly imports from distant lands. This shift is turning Nigeria into a regional energy hub, spurring local economies and lowering fuel prices for millions. This is not just a business shift. It is a lesson in self-reliance, vision, and bold ambition. The world is watching closely, and the message stretches far beyond oil. At home, the benefits are just as profound. Tens of thousands of new jobs are opening across the supply chain, from refining and transport to logistics and export. Nigeria is saving billions of dollars that once flowed overseas, while earning billions more by exporting refined fuel across Africa and beyond. But there is a warning for those who do not adapt. If Europe and other energy giants fail to rethink their strategies, they risk losing their grip on Africa's fast-growing markets. Investors, businesses, even ordinary people who overlook Africa's rise could miss out on the next wave of global opportunity. Let's look at a real-world scenario. Countries like Ghana, Benin, and Togo imported nearly all their fuel from Europe or the Middle East, facing long shipping times and volatile prices. Now, fuel arrives overland from Nigeria in a matter of days, reducing costs and improving reliability. Transport companies in Lagos and Accra are reporting record profits, while governments are redirecting savings into infrastructure and education. But as Nigeria steps onto the world stage, new challenges emerge, some obvious, some unexpected. How will this transformation reshape the future of energy, and who stands to win or lose next? What does Nigeria's leap forward mean for your own ambitions? Beneath the headlines lie lessons that matter wherever you live or work, lessons about value, risk, and the future you help shape. First, Africa is rewriting the rules. By moving beyond exporting raw materials and instead processing and selling finished products, such as refined fuels and petrochemicals, countries like Nigeria are stepping onto the world stage as true competitors. For entrepreneurs, investors, or anyone planning their next move, this is a wake-up call. Real opportunity comes from building new skills and climbing the value chain, not just staying where you are comfortable. In the 1980s, Brazil faced an energy crisis, importing most of its fuel. By investing in domestic ethanol production, it not only solved the crisis, but became a global exporter of biofuels. Nigeria's journey echoes this transformation, showing that with vision and investment, a country can flip the script on dependency. Consider the Dangote Refinery. It is far more than an oil plant. It is a model for investing in local talent, creating tens of thousands of skilled jobs, and keeping wealth circulating within Africa rather than letting it slip away. Even when doubters questioned its chances, Nigeria proved that betting on your own resources can succeed. For anyone with big dreams, this is your signal. Trust your strengths and invest in what you can create at home. But this story is bigger than Nigeria. The Dangote project is sparking hope across Africa. Neighboring nations are now inspired to develop their own industries and turn raw resources into valuable goods. This is how economies are transformed. If you are watching from abroad, take notice. Africa's new industries are opening fresh growth markets, and those who move first could gain the most. So what does Nigeria's new refinery truly reveal about Africa's future and your own place in the shifting global order? There is real danger in looking away. For companies, missing Africa's rise could mean losing out on the next wave of opportunity. For individuals, failing to learn from this bold vision risks being left behind as the world changes around you. Now, let's pull back and see what this means for the world's energy map. The shockwaves from Lagos may reach farther than anyone expects. Africa is no longer simply a supplier. It is stepping forward as a powerhouse. Are you paying attention? For decades, Africa was boxed in as the world's warehouse for raw materials. Now, Nigeria's choice to briefly import oil is not a setback. It is a calculated leap. The Dangote Refinery stands as a symbol of Africa's intent to claim its place among global energy leaders. What seemed like weakness was, in truth, the start of a larger transformation. By temporarily importing light sweet crude from the United States, Nigeria was fueling a change capable of rewriting centuries of trade. For the first time, African innovation is steering the flow of energy, capital, and influence. This refinery is more than steel and concrete. It represents economic independence, new jobs, and a future where Africa charts its own course. Nigeria is flipping the script, no longer shipping out crude and buying back expensive fuel. Today, major economies like the United States, Saudi Arabia, and powerhouse Asian nations are buying refined fuel from Africa. In 2030, a European energy crisis leaves nations scrambling for affordable fuel. Instead of relying on traditional Middle Eastern suppliers, European governments turn to Africa. Tankers depart from Lagos, loaded with gasoline and jet fuel, stabilizing markets and underscoring Africa's new importance. The continent, once overlooked, becomes a lifeline for global energy security. For young Africans, this shift opens new doors. University graduates in Lagos and Port Harcourt are landing engineering jobs once reserved for foreigners. Small businesses are springing up to service the refinery, everything from catering to equipment maintenance. The impact ripples outward, lifting families and communities. If you have always seen Africa as merely a supplier, it is time to reconsider. The global energy landscape is shifting beneath our feet. Where opportunities take root, jobs flourish. Where leadership rises, investment follows. Recognizing this new reality could change your view of global power and your own prospects. Next time you fill your tank or watch oil prices move, remember, Africa is no longer waiting for approval. It is now shaping its own destiny, and the world cannot afford to look away. The question is, will you seize the chance to participate, or will the next chapter of global opportunity pass you by? So, what practical steps can individuals and businesses take to ride this new wave? For students, consider focusing on STEM fields: engineering, logistics, renewable energy. For entrepreneurs, look for gaps in supply chains, transport, storage, or digital solutions for the oil and gas sector. For investors, research African companies poised for growth as regional integration deepens.